Okay, good morning. I'm coming to you with two really crucial pieces of information. Long story short, there are some elected officials attempting to create regulations about what ID card you can have and what it says and whether or not you can vote. Now, I know it's giving schoolhouse rock, but just hear me out. I'm not an attorney, I'm not a doctor, but I'm a human being and I'm paying attention and concerned about how this will impact other human beings. Now, the legislative process has a lot of steps going from an idea to an actual law that's in place. And a lot of times these ideas start small in one or two states and then get fast-tracked through the legal system at the Supreme Court level, basically making it so that everyone has to follow the law that just one state put in place. Now, it's a very complicated process and system, and this is an oversimplification, but I think most people prefer it pretty simple, so here we go. The new voter registration and identification policies that some lawmakers are proposing could very well impact the entire nation, and it's obviously what they're intending on doing. Now, I want to tell you about two bills or proposals or laws, depending on when you see this, which hopefully is early, because that means we still have time. Now, these are sweeping policies that govern over the entire country. How we vote, immigration, citizenship, and considering the recent challenges to birthright citizenship, I think it's really important that we consider how they impact large groups of people, not just somebody that you saw on social media or some guy who's the cousin of a guy who works at a gas station that you heard about on your lunch break. I'm talking about laws on the books that impact everyone. And I believe when dealing with large groups of people, it's really important to look at how impact over intent, basically. Now, anyway, let's dive in. First up, the SAVE Act, which creates regulations that basically make voting more difficult. It was created to apparently stop non-U.S. citizens from voting. Now, you can read the entire thing online. It's widely reported, so you can just make your own interpretation about it. And I know it's a personal topic for a lot of people, and it's important, but regardless of who you think should vote and why, there are already federal and state laws in place to protect election access and integrity. So this would make voter registration much harder for American citizens and increase the risk that eligible voters would be removed from voter rolls. Now, right now, non-U.S. citizens cannot legally vote in federal elections. They're not allowed to vote in federal elections. It is not legal for them to vote in federal elections. The people working at voting sites cannot allow them to vote in federal elections. It is not legal. But essentially, this piece of legislation would be throwing out the baby with the bathwater, to use a terrible, terrible expression. This particular piece of legislation basically says the name you vote with must match your original birth certificate. Now, they're saying that they're only targeting illegal voting, but they are in essence using immigrants as a scapegoat and a distraction, allowing them to target trans people and women and queer people and any of the other groups that they've been targeting lately. Now, if you've ever changed your name, then your birth certificate doesn't match. Anyone can change your name, but this definitely impacts married women, trans people, and basically anybody who's legally goes through the name change process and whose name does not match their birth certificate. I don't know the exact timeline, but it's moving very quickly. The second piece of proposed legislation moved very fast, and it's already in motion. It's essentially an amendment to how the U.S. passports are processed and granted. Now, I have firsthand experience with traveling and presenting a document that doesn't match. It is terrifying. But because having a matching document is part of why they use documents to identify who you are in the first place. If the face doesn't match the name and the name doesn't match the gender, then what's the point? I mean, it can open up a whole can of problems and put you at risk for being detained or even arrested. And keeping with the president's rules about gender, the Department of State basically announced that they would no longer issue future passports with an X-gender marker identifier. They also said that they would not mess with pre-existing passports, meaning anyone who's already had their gender marker changed. What they didn't say is that they were going to basically not only block people from getting new gender marker changes, but they were also going to go back and reverse all the previous and current gender marking changes that trans people who've already had their documents updated and having them erased and removed and reversed by, one by one, basically as they send them in for renewal. Now, this policy, sadly, is not on the website, and it's not clearly understood. And there are reports of trans people having their identity documents taken and their gender markers reversed. But now the ACLU is planning to fight this in court in a case called Orr versus Trump. Now, I'm not sure when you're seeing this video, but if they haven't passed it yet, now is the time to act. Neither of these cases or policies fix any of the problems that they actually say that they're trying to address. In fact, they create more problems for more people than they actually fix for anyone. Now, if you do not want to see either of these things happen, then please call your U.S. representatives at the number here, Find your congressional senators and representatives by visiting congress.gov, and then call them at the main phone number at 202-224-3121. Tell them do not pass the SAVE Act, and tell them to keep their hands off the passports and allow trans people to identify however they wish. Thank you so much. Goodbye.